right, let's be cognizant of time and get started. Hey everyone, welcome. Thanks for joining. Today we're going to be having a panel type discussion, a little different than maybe what you're used to. Not a lot of presentations, but more of a discussion with product experts from Global Traffic Technologies and Whelen Engineering about emerging technologies in the public safety space, and some of the benefits that first responders, police will see from these cloud-based technologies. So before we jump in, we're probably all very used to using Zoom by now, but I do want to cover a couple of housekeeping items. We are going to be using the Q&A feature today. To access the Q&A feature, go ahead and navigate to the control panel at the top or bottom of your screen. Click Q&A and you can type in your questions there. Please do not submit questions in the comments. Use the Q&A feature so that our panelists and myself can track them there. There is an option to upvote questions. So if you see somebody that has a question very similar to yours, you can click the thumbs up button next to it and it'll move it to the top. Today, we're going to be also doing some interactive polling. You've probably seen this feature as well. We're going to ask you guys a couple of questions to get to know you and to get to know what type of products you're currently using. So please be prepared to interact with our polling today. And then last but not least, some of you have already inquired with me, is this going to be recorded? Yes, we are recording today and we will be distributing the recording after the discussion takes place. So we'll do that via email for all of you that are attending today, and you can share it with your network as you please. So without further ado, let's go ahead and meet our panel. In no particular order, we have Josh Lehman, Senior Product Manager from GTT. Hi, Josh.
Hey, Kristen. Thanks for having me.
Yep. Next, we have Chris Watkins, Field Solutions Engineer from Whelen. Hey, Chris.
Glad to be here.
Third, we have Glenn Klimek. He's Business Development for Public Safety at GTT.
Good morning, everybody.
And last but certainly not least, we have Omid Kennedy, Product Manager at Whelen Engineering. Hi, Omid.
Hi, guys.
All right, so before we jump in, I did promise we do want to do some polling. We want to get to know you all a little better. So we're going to quickly launch a poll to ask you who you are. So here we go. We have several options here. You can select all that apply. If none of them apply, that's okay. You don't have to answer these questions, but we just want to get to know who we have on the call today, who's interested in learning more about this. All right, while we got the polls still coming in, let's go ahead and jump to the first question. I'm going to give this one over to Glenn. Glenn, what exactly is emergency vehicle preemption for those on the call that have never heard of it? And can you tell us some of the benefits of it?
Sure. What emergency vehicle preemption is simply is the ability for an emergency vehicle to control an intersection, giving them the green light while everyone else gets the red. This keeps the public safe, reducing intersection crashes by up to 70% while improving response times by up to 25%.
Simple enough. We wouldn't want those types of benefits. So Josh, that was a great, quick little snippet, easy to understand what EVP actually is, but can you tell us how it works? There's probably some questions about that, and maybe give the attendees a little insight into the history of the technology and the evolution of it.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So Opticom has been around for over 50 years, and Opticom was really the original preemption system. It started off as an infrared technology, and that infrared technology, if you see the old units, the units were about the size of a microwave that was actually on the top of the emergency vehicle. And at the intersection, they had large detectors as well. So it's pretty crazy that we've gone from something that large to not even needing hardware at the intersections for some of our newer technologies. But the infrared technology was really the original solution. It's still widely used today. and is really kind of the most prevalent solution that you'll see in the preemption space. So that was kind of the original. That was really around for probably almost 40 years before kind of the newer technology came out. There's a lot of the advantages, obviously, just having the preemption solution, like Glenn talked about, but there are some disadvantages. For example, infrared is a line of sight technology. So you have an emitter on your vehicle. Like I talked about, it used to be really big. Now it's about the size of a cell phone. And at the intersection, you have a detector, right? So the emitter is communicating to the detector at the intersection and basically telling the intersection, hey, I'm an emergency vehicle and I'm heading your way. So that vehicle can get a green light. The disadvantage to that technology is line of sight is a big disadvantage, right? If you have something like tree branches or things like that, you have leaves, that are in the way. The infrared light's not going to go shine through that. You're going around a curve. If there's really bad weather, for example, heavy fog, heavy smoke, heavy rain, snow, that communication can really deteriorate because it is a line of sight technology. And so in the early 2000s, we came out with the Opticom radio-based solution. So Opticom radio-based solution was kind of the latest and greatest at that time, right? So it came with a radio to communicate from the vehicle to the intersection. So now you don't have to worry as much about kind of line of sight. That radio communication can go through trees and things like that. But the difference with this system too is now there's less equipment at the intersection, right? So instead of having a bunch of different detectors, you just have one single antenna. Those disadvantages for the line of sight, like I said, even with bad weather and things like that, you still had the same reliable communication. So that was kind of the leading solution up till about 2012 when we came out with our Opticom centralized solution. This started off in New York City, and they were really looking for a solution that didn't have any hardware. They had over 6,000 intersections, and they weren't going to install equipment at 6,000 intersections. It's too much time, effort, money to be able to do that, manage and maintain it. So they really wanted this hardwareless solution, and we worked with them to build out this solution. Since then, it's in the last 10 years, it's evolved significantly to now it's essentially what we call today is the Opticom Cloud solution. So with the Opticom Cloud solution, you really get a lot of the benefits, like Glenn talked about, of that preemption system, reduce accidents, improved response times. We've actually even seen in some case studies over 35% reduction in response time for some agencies. So average is maybe closer to 15, but you can see some significant savings. The big advantage is there's just a lot more as it relates to what you can do with that technology. So now, since you're using basically network communications or cellular communications as your primary form of communication, there's no limit on the amount of range that you have. So the logic and the algorithms that we've developed to be able to utilize that is a lot more optimized and provides a lot more benefits both for traffic by reducing a lot of the impact on traffic, as well as improving the response time and the safety of emergency vehicles, just because intersections have a lot further notice of when that vehicle is coming. So with that, I mean, there are a number of different benefits as well. And, one of the things is we can work with great partners like Whelen, right, to provide more seamless and integrated solutions as well.
Awesome. Thanks for that explanation, Josh. That was a rich history you described to us, and I feel like I actually learned some new things myself. One of the things I found most interesting that you touched on is that one, this technology has been around for years. It's evolved quite a bit, but it's oftentimes the big cities like New York's that lead the way in wanting something new. So I really liked hearing that, up to 10 years ago, New York was looking for these types of hardwareless solutions, and we were able to provide for that. That's neat. And I think you see the New Yorks, the Chicagos, the UKs, all kind of leading the way in these emerging technologies. So thanks for that, Josh.
Yeah.
What about Whelen? Let's hear a little bit more about you all. As I understand it, you guys have a really deep pride. I see a lot of your marketing materials. Of course, I follow you all on LinkedIn. And this Made in America history, I love that. Ami, do you care to elaborate and tell us a little bit more about Whelen?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so marketing aside, like it's really true. Like we are quite proud of like who we are, where we came from. This year, Whelen is actually celebrating its 70th year, which is like crazy to think about. So Whelen started off in Deep River, Connecticut. So I'm sure not everyone here is from Connecticut or has heard of Deep River, but it's a very small town. And I mean, Whelen started in a detached garage, like, and back then it was making just like the old school strobe lights that you saw that probably seen old school movies they put out and stick on top of the roof when they wanted to go. Like that's where Whelen started from. And over all these years, you know, our technology has evolved and we've built up on it. We started getting into control systems that went inside like emergency vehicles. And back then, those were operated from just like dip switches. And now we started getting more into like programming. So you'd be able to connect it to a computer and set. So like when I push this button, I want these lights to turn on and so forth. And even from then expanded further where now the control system would connect to the vehicle. And we started reading signals from the onboard diagnostics. So you would get signals from like, I'm sorry, I meant the body control module. So you would see things like when my driver door is open, you could now program things to happen. So when I open my driver door, you may want to cut the corner of your light bar. So as like the officer is getting out of the car, he's not getting light shined in his face. Or maybe you want to turn on some ground illumination so he can see the ground where he's stepping. And, you know, from there, Whelen was like, well, where can we go next? And really the next step we saw was getting into the cloud space because no one else in the emergency warning space, as far as like Whelen's area goes, was really there yet. So we're like, all right, this is the next place to go. I mean, we already have a lot of things that are IoT, Internet of Things devices, like your refrigerator, you know, is connected to the cloud. Your stove is connected to the cloud. So it only made sense that our control systems would go next to connect to the cloud. But Whelen, we've always been made in America. We now have a facility which is in Chester, Connecticut, which is the town right up from Deep River. So we didn't go far from where we started. And we also have a larger factory facility up in New Hampshire. A lot of our things are vertically integrated to the best that we can, which is why we can actually say we're made in America. It's everybody likes to stamp that, but to truly be like a certain percentage of your things need to come from America, and Whelen actually qualifies for that. So deep history, and it's great to be working with a company like GTT who also has such a rich history. So this just made sense.
Very cool. Yeah, being a marketer, of course, you know, I had to mention the marketing that I've seen, but we also at previous companies I've worked for have gone after the Made in America seal, and it's hard. It's quite rigorous. You have to meet a lot of standards. So I love that about Whelen. Thank you for elaborating on that. What I also loved was that, you know, and Josh, what you were saying, Opticom's been around for about almost 60 years, Whelen 70 years. Together, that's 130 years of combined existence for these two companies to build solutions to service the public servants that we service today. So that's pretty cool. It shows you how powerful that this partnership is. Folks in the audience, I do want to go ahead and launch another poll with you. We want to get to know if you are a Whelen customer, what are some of the solutions that you are using? Again, if this doesn't apply to you, you do not have to answer, but we're going to go ahead and launch this poll. Okay, so we've learned some about EVP. We've learned about the proud history of Whelen. Chris, I want to throw a question out to you. I haven't heard you talk today yet. I know you've been a part of kind of building this relationship between these two companies. So can you tell us how it kind of came to be? Maybe you have a funny story or two you can sneak in and share with us.
Sure. So yeah, as Amit said, our partnership, it just kind of makes sense. GTT is the industry leader in preemption. They're throughout the world in the United States, and Whelen Engineering being the industry leader in emergency lighting. It just made sense for us to have this exclusive connection. Funny story. So I'm one of the guys that travels around and gets to talk to folks and teach them about Whelen Cloud Platform. But we always ask at the end of the day, hey, what do you want to see this product do? What direction do you want to go? Cloud is kind of new to a lot of our customers. And as a joke, a lot of our customers asked them very early on, sure would be nice to get green lights. And so it's just funny that we're here today and we're at this solution and what it can do for customers.
Awesome. Yep. We're giving them the green light plus everything that you all are giving them. Great. So you talked a lot about cloud. Obviously, Josh has hit on cloud. Amid said it was a natural migration to the cloud. We hear all about cloud, connected infrastructure, the Internet of Things. But as I saw in the polling, there's probably a lot of people on this call that are actually out in the field working. So what are some of the benefits that they will see from cloud-based technology? I want to throw this to Josh. You're kind of an expert in this space. Can you elaborate on that one for us?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So there are a lot of different benefits that I'll be going through for a cloud-based solution, and specifically, talking about a preemption, a cloud-based solution like we're talking about here, but really any solution between the the Whelen cloud and the Opticom cloud. A lot of benefits over the infrared and GPS radio solutions. I think that's why we see, like Chris said, so much interest in these types of technologies is because the benefit or the leap in service in quality and things like that, just in a lot of other benefits that you can gain, is really kind of an exponential leap from where we were before. So it's really cool being able to see, when you're presenting this or showing it or demoing it to potential, agencies that are looking into it, the kind of the wow factor that they have is like, oh, wow, okay, yeah, this totally makes sense. It's such a big leap over what we have today. So, one of the main benefits I talked about earlier, with a cloud-based solution like this, there's the algorithms that we can do is just kind of infinitely better, right? There's just so much more processing that you can have in the cloud. You can use things like machine learning, deep learning, other things like that, to be able to better optimize your requests to the intersections. So you just get overall better quality of service on your preemption requests, meaning safer and more efficient travel. When everything's collected in the cloud too, you can monitor and maintain your system really easily from any device. So, you want to see, how a vehicle is responding, jump on your phone, jump on, your laptop, your tablet, whatever you have, you can be able to see, and at any point in time, be able to see how the system is functioning. Traditional systems, if you wanted to see if the system is functioning, you had to drive to like every intersection, check out all of your vehicles, make sure everything is working well. And with these systems, it's just open up your dashboard and you see, instantly everything's working. So it saves you a lot of time and energy for that. With that, there's a lot of different reports and analytics, KPIs that we can provide, making sure that you're getting the most benefit out of your system, and you're actually hitting the numbers that you need to hit. Like I said, because you can do everything remotely, there's a lot of time savings. Even with the Whelen Cloud platform, there's so much that you can do remotely. It's pretty crazy how much time can be saved just by being able to do that and push out remote changes, all kind of from one UI. With that too, everything's connected and therefore everything's getting continual updates. So traditionally you would buy an infrared system or a radio-based system. And when you put it in, most people wouldn't essentially be updating it at all, right? So they would put it in, they're not going to go out to every vehicle constantly or intersection and update the firmware and things like that. With an always connected cloud system like this, those updates are happening automatically. So you're getting the latest features as soon as they're released, and the latest security patches too. As everyone knows, cybersecurity changes day by day, week by week, hour by hour, right? So it's great to have the latest security at your fingertips as soon as that becomes available. Another thing too, obviously with security, encryption and things like that we're building in the product, just making sure these systems are much more secure. We're seeing a significant reduction in hardware costs, both the upfront hardware, because these types of solutions, we can integrate, for example, if you already have the Whelen cloud system, boom, all your vehicles are ready for an Opticom preemption system. A lot of the intersection equipment too, traditionally, it's difficult for traffic departments because there's all this equipment that you have to put in, maintain, run wires, a lot of different work like that. And now you can just communicate to the intersection without having any additional hardware. So we're seeing deployment times go from, months to years to, weeks or months, right? So it's significantly reducing the time that it takes to deploy these systems, which just means a faster preemption system for you. So you're getting that benefit as soon as you can. Last couple of things I just want to mention, open data platform, like I talked about, all that data is being aggregated and collected. You have access to all that data. It's your data. Use it how you'd like. And we have lots of different ways of working with agencies to provide that data. We get to do all these great integrations like with Whelen. I'm very excited about it. I know the Whelen team as well. So it's really cool to see how we can really provide this seamless solution for our customers. We've had customers say, this is a no-brainer. Like I got both. Like turn on the light, right? Give me the green.
Yep.
So it's really cool to see that. And then finally, like I talked about, all the benefits Glenn talked about, 70% reduction in response time, 35% reduction in response time, and 70% of crashes. That's why we're here, right? We want people to be safer. We want our agencies, firefighters, police officers, any emergency responders, we want them to be safer. We want citizens to be safer. That's really always the goal with this and any partnership that we work through. So
yeah, awesome. Great explanation, Josh. Glenn, he nailed it, but anything else that you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, sure. So I can tell you, from experience, I've sold cloud to a lot of customers. We have quite a few on board with Opticom Cloud today. And the biggest thing that they see is from the maintenance aspect, because before, when they would purchase equipment, it would be at the intersection. They never gave a thought to maintenance of that equipment. And it was constantly, who's going to pay for the maintenance? Is it going to be traffic? Is it going to be fire? And that equipment just kind of went in and never was maintained. They could never figure out if it was working or not. With this system, there's the peace of mind of knowing it's connected. We're reporting on it, we're maintaining it, we're updating it, and they just know it's working all the time, and they get reports based on that. So that's been one of the biggest things that my customers have told me that has been, a plus for them, is just knowing the system's there, knowing it's working, and knowing somebody's taking care of it.
Yeah, awesome, Glenn. So the things that I took away from that are you can make decisions more quickly with these integrated cloud solutions because of the big data that's provided. They're deployable at a lower or more affordable cost. Oftentimes, installation times are much quicker because it's all cloud-based and you can do remote configuration. Obviously, the benefits of solutions on either side will improve safety in the community via quicker response times, less intersection crash rates, and all of that stuff. And then simpler maintenance. I mean, it's a no-brainer, like you said, Josh. So thanks for that. We talk about cloud-based solutions a lot, and the thing that I always think about, I write a lot about these types of things, and is the ones that people know a lot about, which are like, the Microsoft Office, the cloud-based Microsoft Office. And these things are the way of the future, right? Omid, you said our next thing, it's a no-brainer for us. We're going to cloud. Opticom has been in cloud. Before we know it, we're going to be in the connected future. We're already here, right? We're making waves in it, and it's just gonna keep ramping up quickly. So we know it's the way of the future, but there's always going to be hardware that is needed, whether it's infrastructure in the roadways or vehicle hardware. So Chris, I'm going to ask you this one. What kind of hardware is needed to make this solution between Opticom and Whelen work?
Okay, I'll take that one. So our vehicle safety gateway, so we call it our VSG. It's basically the Whelen manufactured modem that will directly securely connect to Whelen cloud platform. And that's what allows our cloud to talk to your cloud and make all this work. What's great about this hardware is that Does it require you to have our equipment on it? Of course, we want you to have Whelen equipment on your car, but it works with any emergency vehicle with any lighting. If it is connected to our newest core control system, it will add more features and do more benefits, but this can be used in any vehicle with any lighting system. And you kind of see here on the display, you're seeing here, Whelen core, the VSG, I'm sorry, connected to our cloud and then talking to the Opticom cloud, which then talks down to the traffic system.
I love this image because I feel like it makes it really simple to understand in a visual way. I tend to be a very visual person, so that's why I wanted to flash this up here. Omi, did you want to tell us some more about some of the features that you can get from the Whelen cloud platform?
Yeah, for sure. So I just want to touch base real quick. As Chris pointed out, like you don't need to be connected to a Whelen control system to do it. So if you had just our vehicle safety gateway installed in your vehicle, that hardware has like 7 inputs on it that can be wired up to whatever you'd like. And very soon you'll be able to put labels on those. So for example, if you wanted to hook one of those up to like a gun lock, for example, you would be able to know when like a officer has deployed his gun lock, or if you were like a DOT kind of guy and you want to hook it up to like a salt spreader and you want to track like when you're spreading salt on the road, you'd be able to have like data on that. But you get the most features, like Chris said, when you connect it to a Whelen control system. So that gives you a lot more. In both scenarios, you could see your vehicles on a live map. So you can log into the platform and see where your guy is, how fast he's going, and what's the status of that vehicle. So by status, I mean, is the vehicle online or is it offline? And is it in responding mode or not? So lights and sirens are, trying to get somewhere. Now, when connected to the core, we get some additional data from that. So we get more just being connected to our control systems. You don't have to do as much hard wiring. So a lot of those data points that I talked about that will soon be available on the live map, it's less on the installation side. You can just get that just through programming and set up. Like you'd want to know when the gun lock's deployed, you'd want to know when the vehicle's in park, you'd want to know if let's use a different example, if like your narcotics box on an ambulance has been opened, and you can wire up to these things and just get that info on the live map. From there, we also have a lot of analytics that come into play. So being able to see how fast your guys were going, how fast were they going on a certain date. You can see playbacks of your vehicle, so you can select the date and time and see where this vehicle was going, how fast it was going. Was it in responding mode or not? So were the lights and sirens playing? Basically follow the path that he took and see where they went. So if there's ever any question that comes up, you'd have that data available at your fingertips. Another thing is heat maps. So you could see a heat map of whatever your agency or wherever your agency is. So let's say you're a citywide agency. You would see a heat map of your entire city, and you would see, where are they responding the most? So you could see where they're turning on their lights and sirens the most, where they're having the most incidents that they're responding to. And then likewise, you would see areas that maybe are not as hot, or maybe they're under patrolled, for example. From there, we also have the ability to lock down the control system that you're connected with. So a lot of complaints that we, at least on the Whelen side, have gotten from some agencies is that they have more tech savvy officers and people that like to connect to their control systems and do a little programming at home and change things around. And I know the fleet managers tend not to like that. And they've always asked us, is there a way I can keep the guy out? Is there any way I can prevent them from making changes? And back then our answer used to be, just, put a metal plate over the USB port, or, tell them not to do that. And as people know in this call, when someone tells you not to do something, you're probably going to do it anyway. So we have the ability to lock the control system down through the cloud platform. So it's a digital lock that we put on it. So if someone tried to connect to the control system and extract the configuration that's on it, we wouldn't let them do that. Subsequently with that, we're able to push configurations down into your fleet through the cloud platform. So back in the day, or I mean, pretty much current today, even if you don't have this solution, in order to make a change to a control system, whether it be Whelen or anybody else's, you have to connect to the car physically. You have to take your laptop, connect it to the control system, transfer your configuration down, and then do it to the next car, to the next car, to the next car. We've had agencies where they programmed their whole fleet and they all went out and then they realized that they forgot to do something. And I mean, this is like true story. This happened in Georgia, and it took them 30 days to make that change to the entire fleet again, because you had to wait for the car to come back. You'd make the change to that one car. That car would leave, the next car would come, and you basically check it on a list that this one was done, this one was done. The nice thing about the solution, as I said, you could just select your entire fleet, push a configuration down to it, and within a minute, your whole fleet is updated and you don't have to worry about that. Likewise, now that we've gotten into this connected space, our hardware has firmware on it that can be updated. So as we build new features and add all of these things, we have to be able to update hardware, and it'd be a huge pain to have to do that the old way, which again, connecting physically to the car. So we can do that remotely through the cloud platform. We can even set up a geofence, which is basically if you imagine a map and you draw a circle on an area, let's say it's your agency headquarters, you can have it when these cars enter this area, they'll automatically do an update. So you don't have to even touch anything. Like you don't even have to go on the platform and click update. It'll just do that for you. So you can always go under the assumption that your fleet is up to date and running at its most efficient state, which is incredible. And of course, we've talked about this whole, the main reason we're here, being able to ask for a green light through Opticom and with GTT, no longer having to worry about the line of sight. So we now, talking to your cloud platform, we know where the car is going. We know that the officer or whoever is going to make a right turn, for example, right? We can now preempt that light before the vehicle has even rounded the corner and has line of sight to that light. So we're already asking for the green light way before the car has rounded the corner. And again, if we know that they're just going to travel down this line, we can start preempting the next light and the next light. So just getting you guys there that much faster and just getting past all those old physical limitations that we had. And we're always expanding. We're always building new features. I mean, I'm very passionate. I am the product manager for the cloud platform. So we're always looking ahead, and we're already looking at the next possible feature to build out would be what we call responder to responder, which would be any car that's equipped with our vehicle safety gateway. If they're both approaching an intersection, for example, we would let them know that they are on a potential collision course. And so to avoid a responder on responder accident, which unfortunately, happens sometimes. And so we'd be able to basically let the cars know, whether audio or visually, that, hey, slow down, you're about to hit another guy. And then they would know this and slow down and avoid the accident, which is, again, very exciting feature. And just one of the other ways that we're looking at adding more safety into this industry.
That was awesome, Omid. I love working with product managers because you all are so passionate about the products you represent, and I can really read that through you. So many great benefits from the Whelen Cloud platform, and I mean, these two solutions combined, it's undeniable, right? We have two more questions that I'm going to pose to the panelists today. But we have a ton of questions rolling in on the Q&A, which I am excited to see. So we want to leave plenty of time for that. The next question I'm going to give to Glenn and Chris, just talking about what's happening in the real world with this. Are there customers today that have deployed this partnered solution? Can you tell us a little bit about their experience and some of their feedback?
Sure, I can start with that. So one of the customers we just finished installing actually last week is the first customer in Texas to use this particular solution in this platform as we see it. It's Red Oak, Texas Fire Department. They're in Harris County. We put in 15 intersections and 18 VSGs, which thanks to the guys at Whelen, they got within 2 days and were installed, I think, 3 days later. So it went very, very quick. And then the intersection configuration, I believe we went through in about 2 weeks to get complete and done. So really in the time span of 2 weeks total, we got the VSGs installed, we got the intersections up, and they were working last week. So that was kudos to everybody that helped out with that. They're a small community, but they also are in addition to the Harris County deployment. So we have about 1,000 intersections and 500 vehicles within Harris County on an existing cloud. And we're currently in the process of connecting Red Oak into that cloud structure so that they can trigger not only their 18 intersections, but the other 1,000 that exist in Harris County today, giving them, true interoperability.
That's awesome, Glenn. I think I actually saw a question in our Q&A, and we'll get to it from John, asking if it was an open system that could be used from one city to the next. And I think you just gave a perfect example of how it is. And you can add vehicles and add intersections as needed across city lines. So thanks, Glenn. Chris, did you want to add on to that at all?
As far as cities that we've gotten on, San Rafael, California has been on. I think they're the first one that we logged on. I think that's gone very well. And I believe we've got Sevierville and Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, that'll be turning on pretty soon.
Yeah, we will actually be at an event in mid-September with you all, ITS World Congress in Los Angeles. And we'll be on stage there hosting something kind of similar to this, a panel, but we'll also have some customers, we're hoping, live there to tell us firsthand about their experience. They won't be paid off. No, they'll be able to be honest. If you're in attendance at that show, get up and ask them the hard questions. We really just want to talk about the benefits to the community, right? The improved safety and things of that nature. So we have one more question. I want to give this one to Glenn. If anybody else wants to elaborate too, feel free. On our side, we've been talking a lot about federal funding, and every time you turn on the news, I feel like you hear someone in the government talking about the American Rescue Plan Act or the bipartisan infrastructure bill. So what does that mean for public safety? Are we able to subsidize these solutions with those funds? Glenn, I know you've been out there talking about this. Can you take that one?
Yeah, sure. Simply yes. The answer is yes. The funds, both of these funding packages can be used for Opticom because they relate directly to first responders and responding to incidents. So, in the past, we used the AFG grant through FEMA to fund a lot of systems. And that's still kind of going. We've dropped down in priority or preemption has on that. So now with the AFG and the bid grant, bipartisan, we've locked into other funding sources. There's $350 billion in the bid grant, and another 550 billion in the ARPA grant. So I've had a lot of cities take advantage of this. One of the good things is it's kind of locally controlled. Once the federal government gives the funding up, the local entities get to decide how to spend it. So it's become a lot easier to fund these through that.
I've heard some people say, no, we didn't apply, we didn't get it. There are so many federal funding options. Today, we promised you that we would be sending up a follow-up email with this recording. We also have a federal funding guidebook. So if it's something that your agency is interested in learning more about, you can flip through the pages of that. We've linked to all types of assets where you can do some diligence on your own and see what sources of funding are out there. You don't have to budget for this stuff out of pocket. The government is really, really invested in supporting infrastructure and public safety. They are committed to it, as you can see, with all of the money that they're pumping into the market today. So, all right, with that, let's go ahead and wrap up the panel part of it. Thank you guys again for participating in this. It's been a pleasure to work with you. Let's go ahead and move on to the Q&A. I'm gonna pull it up here. All right. John, thanks for asking all of these questions. So John Cooper asks first, how does this work with older intersections that have legacy systems open for strobe lights? Josh, I'm going to toss this one over to you to answer for John.
Yeah, and there were a couple different questions that I was seeing around the intersection side. So let me add more clarity there. And Kristen, if you can bring up the diagram, I think that might be helpful for the explanation as well. So the Opticom system, and this is a great point that I forgot to mention. So we designed this system to really support to be able so that customers could join the Opticom cloud system without having to rip and replace their older equipment. So a lot of the Opticom like strobe-based systems or infrared-based systems that are in place today would support adding the Opticom cloud to those intersections without adding any additional equipment there. There's in the infrared system and in the radio-based system, there was a phase selector physical piece of hardware that would go at the intersection. That piece of hardware can be used for preemption. So we released a new version of that card, I think around 10 plus years ago. That card is able to be used for a cloud-based preemption. So in a lot of cases, talking to cities, they didn't have to put in any new equipment there. They could use their existing Opticom phase selector that was at the intersection, connected that to the cloud, and now they had a cloud-based preemption system. We also support on that intersection side, communicating directly to the traffic controller. So in some cities, St. Charles County is a good example of it. We have 300 of their intersections, 350, I think. None of them needed equipment. We just communicated to their intersections directly using a standard protocol. And from there, now they have preemption at all those intersections. So it was essentially a flip of the switch for them, getting those set up. So that was really easy. We've never run into a controller that we can't integrate with unless it's an old mechanical controller that's like 50 plus years old, which we don't run into those very often anymore. But we can really preempt any intersection. That's really the advantage of this type of solution. It's really, really flexible at the intersection side. So we can really integrate with many different systems. So we can work with you on your specific intersections because every city, state, county is different. But no issues with being able to communicate to those.
Thanks, Josh, for the clarity on that. The next question is around costs, and I think I saw a couple of questions around costs. Because like Josh said, every intersection, every vehicle is different, and the way these systems integrate can be different based around the infrastructure that you have. There is not an exact cost that we can spit out today and say, this is only $5 for you. That's not really the way it works. But John, since you've shown interest in this, what we can do is we can have one of our representatives reach out directly to you, figure out what you're working with in your community, and then help get a verified quote over to you. The next one, this is the one that Glenn kind of highlighted, that John is asking here. Is it an open system where an ambulance traveling through multiple cities will get the green light, or is it locked down? I think we said that it can be open, but if anyone on the panel wants to elaborate any more on that or give any real life examples, you can go ahead, or we can go ahead and skip to the next question.
Yeah, I can take that. So yeah, as long as, it is an open system, whereas anybody, can outfit their vehicles or intersections. But if you're traveling to another city that doesn't have cloud, then yes, that's not going to preempt their intersections, because their intersections do have to be connected in order to preempt.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, and just to elaborate on that too. So we do have some agencies, for example, one agency is on an Opticom GPS radio solution, and the agency over might want to run the Opticom cloud system. We have, and it depends on kind of what hardware is on the vehicle, but we have deployed systems where, one agency is a cloud system, one agency is a radio-based system, and they're able to kind of support mutual aid in those scenarios. The equipment on the vehicle is a little different because obviously, like Glenn said, if an intersection isn't cloud-based, you still have to communicate it using whatever the old method was. But we've built it so that these systems can work interoperable. You just have to have, the intersection has to match the vehicle and vice versa for those two things to communicate. So a lot of cases, one agency might have, all of their vehicles on an infrared solution, but they set up all their vehicles to cloud because that's where they're going, but their vehicles aren't there yet. And so over time, they can kind of move to the newer system and have the other surrounding agencies that are on the cloud be able to communicate to those intersections. So it's kind of case by case depending on what you have, but yeah, that's why we kind of work with you and figure out those details.
Thanks, Josh. We have one from William Adams. Hey, Will. He's saying that they have a couple of intersections with different angles of approach traffic. Can the GTT system operate with different angles?
Yeah, so
yes. Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
yeah, I can answer that. So absolutely, there's no limitation on angles or anything like that. There's no limitation on the number of approaches to the intersection. You could have 20 different roads coming into an intersection at 20 different angles, and we'd be able to preempt each one. I saw something else about multiple vehicles approaching the intersection at the same time too. They don't both get the green light because that's obviously very dangerous. So we do it based on either first come, first serve, or a different level of priority depending on the class of the vehicle. So sometimes vehicles that are like ladder trucks, for example, for fire, sometimes get priority over something like a police cruiser, just because ladder trucks have a harder time maneuvering and stopping and things like that. So that's something that we work with you to figure out what you want your prioritization to be for your relative priority for your vehicles. We've been doing that with Opticom for I don't know, 20 plus years as far as the different prioritization.
Great. A lot of questions about the Opticom solution. Thank you all for submitting these. Bradley asks, what does the upfit look like? I know we've touched on this, but just to be clear, Josh, can you explain to him what the hardware install is like? Is it similar to infrared? Just elaborate that on one more time for us.
Yeah, good question. So as far as what the outfit looks like, so we can a lot of times use equipment that's existing in your vehicle. So we don't have to add anything else in your vehicle. Most vehicles have a cell modem or a Whelen VSG device, vehicle safety gateway, or other equipment that we can just integrate with. So there isn't any additional hardware configuration you need to do there. If there is equipment that you're adding, like the Whelen VSG device, it's a little different than something like a infrared emitter, because an infrared emitter has to be sitting on the front, positioned, pointing out towards towards an intersection or the direction of travel. With the VSG device, you can really put that anywhere inside the vehicle wired up, right? So it's really flexible compared to an emitter where you have to put it in a certain position.
Yeah, and I can kind of speak a little bit more about the VSG install. That might also be what they're asking about. So our vehicle safety gateway is pretty easy install: power, ignition, ground. We need to see a responding input. So you typically wire to the light bar, and then if there's any other additional inputs, such GTT likes to have those turn signals so they can see which way you're directing, whether you're going left or right. And then there is a LTE and GPS antenna that needs to be mounted in a proper location to get good signal. With a Whelen shirt on, I'm going to tell you on the roof, but take that as you wish.
Chris, does it have to hardwire into the light bar, or can it get power from somewhere else?
Yeah, wherever you want to get that responding, we call it a responding mode. So when the vehicle is in an emergency mode, whatever you want that to be, whether it be the light bar or a switch on the dash or a beacon or whatever you're using as your responding mode.
Great, thank you. All right, Fred asks, I deal with intersections that have different classes of vehicle requesting service, EVP and transit. Can this system use different approaches for different classes of vehicles?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So we support, emergency vehicles. So every vehicle could be essentially a different class on the system. So, your police, your fire, your EMS, your ladder trucks, your transit vehicles, your paratransit, even like your freight, if you want to do freight priority, things like that. Really any type public works, any types of vehicles, they can be a different class and they have different levels of prioritization. We actually make the request to the intersection different too. So emergency vehicles, always we give them the green light right away. Transit vehicles, we give them TSP or transit signal priority, which is not just a green light every time, it's like a prioritization. Emergency vehicles always get the green light over a transit vehicle. There's a lot of configuration in that, and I can get into excruciating detail, but I'll get into more detail if you're interested. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways we can configure that, just because a lot of different cities have different kind of perspectives on how that should be configured.
Great, thank you, Josh. And again, I think you all are hearing a theme as you're listening to this, that every city, every vehicle, every intersection is unique in their needs. The important takeaway is that we're flexible, right? So our sales representatives, our product experts, will consult with you to see exactly what would fit best with you. If you're on the public safety side and you have a lot of questions about what's needed at the intersection, we're prepared to talk to the folks that manage and run the intersections. That's what we do day in and day out. So, this isn't a go at it alone and very strict standards of how we have to integrate. We're very, very flexible. So if you have a true interest in this, make sure that you're reaching out to us and we can get you connected with the right people to give you exact answers about what the solution would look like in your community. All right, we have one from Brent. What are the prerequisites for a city's intersection to work on the system? And are there varying levels of integration with different levels of intersection setups out there? I think we know that answer, but Josh, you want to get that
Yep.
one?
Yeah, and I saw a few about compatible controllers, things like that. I don't think there's no controller manufacturer that I know that's on the market that we haven't worked with or we can't work with. So, Econolite, McCain, Intolite, Trafficware, Peak, Siemens, name a traffic controller, and we've integrated with it. So there isn't any limitation to the traffic system that's compatible. We use a standard communication to all of those. And we have different varying levels of technology to do that. As far as the prerequisites, there really isn't any prerequisites. If you don't have communication to your intersections, we'll provide communication to those intersections. If your controller doesn't support kind of the latest communication protocols, we've had our phase selectors and cabinets for over 50 years that have given preemption requests. So there's, like I said, there's really no intersection that we can't communicate with. It's just varying levels of hardware. If you want to deploy a preemption system without any hardware at your intersection, that's when your controller has to support kind of the industry like NTCIP standard, essentially. But again, there's no limit to what we can communicate with. There's not an intersection we can't send a preemption request to.
Thank you, Josh. All right. Jenna has a couple of questions. How does the cloud-based system obtain and use CAD AVL vehicle location data to send messages to traffic signals? What's the architecture? We've kind of showed that architecture. And she asks a second one that I'm going to blend into this one. Is the system route-based?
Yeah, so good questions. So in this case, obviously for this partnership, we're talking about using Whelen as the vehicle data source, but CAD AVL more on the transit side. We can integrate and use that data for requests to the intersection. So we've done that in the past, basically just using them as a data feed, and then we know where the vehicle is and can send requests to the intersection. Asking for it's route based. For transit vehicle, we do account for the route, but there's a concept of route based preemption, which is a lot of times called like a green wave preemption, that has its advantages and disadvantages, and we use kind of a really more of a vehicle based preemption. So the problem with a route-based preemption is emergency responders don't always follow the route. So what happens then when they don't follow the route, you have to figure out how to, you have a green route for them, and now they decide to take a different turn because there was something in the way, or for some reason they just decided to go off route. because they think there's a different way that's faster. Now you're actually giving them red lights in certain areas because now they aren't following the route. So we actually follow the vehicle. We watch and predict the vehicle's movement, and we provide a green light in that direction. It's the reason that we've been an industry leader for 50 plus years in preemption. It's because we've been able to refine that algorithm so well in the way that we've deployed that. So the answer is, transit. Yes, it's more route based. We're emergency vehicles. It's really more vehicle based and where it's going.
Great explanation, Josh. And I want it to be clear because I think we have some people on this call that maybe don't know that Opticom provides priority control, which can be in the form of EVP, emergency vehicle preemption, or TSP, transit signal priority. So that's kind of what Jenna was touching on and what Josh was touching on. So great question, Jenna, and thank you for the explanation, Josh. Are receivers required at each intersection? Jerry asks.
No hardware is required at the intersections.
Jonathan has a great question. Our intersections are online with IR and GPS, and some fleet vehicles with GPS, but most IR. Is there a test version of the cloud platform for us to try? I think we're going to start seeing a lot of questions like this. And the short answer, and I'm sure Josh and Glenn can elaborate, is we are flexible on this, and we are looking to get people to try the Opticom cloud solution. So we'll do what's best for you all. But Josh and Glenn, can you elaborate on that for Jonathan?
Sure, I can respond to that. So yeah, we do have a pilot agreement that we can put in place for a test of the system for a period of time. That's something that you can work with your local GTT rep on, and we can get that set up. It won't be a problem.
Yeah, and Jonathan, we have your contact information from participating in this, so we can reach out to you, or you can reply to the email that you got from Zoom, and it'll come to me, and I'll make sure you get connected with the right person about the trial period. All right. Walter asks, VSG currently requires its own wireless connection. Will the VSG be able to share a wireless router like Sierra Wireless or Cradlepoint, which are already installed to reduce the data costs?
So I'll take this. Yeah, so right now, our vehicle safety gateway, we wanted to make sure it was the most secure device because we're dealing with a lot of law enforcement sharing data and that data getting outside. We want to make sure that that was our utmost important feature. So we do require right now that our unit, and it is self-contained and all secure. Don't know how the future may take us. We've gotten this question a lot, so we've seen that. But just so you do know, Whelen does cover the cost of the LTE charge. So that really doesn't fall on the agency directly.
Thank you, Chris. Brad asks, is this compatible with Weldon multiplex in fire and EMS applications?
Yes. So any third-party controller system in a vehicle, as long as we can get a 12-volt signal from it to tell us that you're in a responding or emergency mode, that's all we need. So it can be used with any system. And I know the systems can be adapted and configured to give us that signal.
Great, thank you. Great. Gabrielle asks, does this system require a centrally located device to communicate between the cloud and the signalized intersection?
I think by device, you mean like device on the traffic network. It doesn't require that, but we can use things like that if you're interested. We work with the agencies to figure out what type of secure connection they want to their intersection. So it doesn't require a centrally located device, but you can have something like that if you're interested. And it depends on kind of what you're looking to solve is by using something like that.
Thank you, Josh. All right.
I read this, the VALs
yeah.
here. It's a pretty big one. Just asking, can we provide a red light to vehicles, especially when you have a police vehicle that's chasing another vehicle, you might want to provide a red light. The problem, we've thought about that, but the problem is if you provide a red light for that fleeing vehicle, they're going to go through the red light, right? So it actually makes intersections less safe by changing that light to red for that vehicle and for the responding officers. So we provide a green light for the responding officers so that they can, pursue that vehicle safely. And it's a little different than IR. IR, a lot of times the responding vehicle actually outran the lights, so it was moving fast enough that infrared wasn't able to keep up with it. With the cloud-based system, you don't have that problem, so we see a lot more safety in those types of incidents as well.
Yeah, I can elaborate a little bit too. So the customers that I've dealt with in the PD market that are utilizing this, they actually see it as a good thing because it comes back to public safety. So if you're chasing a suspect and they're running through lights, how many times have we seen these chase videos on TV and that suspect barrels through a red intersection and T-bones somebody? Most of the police agencies see it as a good thing because again, it's keeping the red light for everyone else. So when that vehicle passes through that intersection, there's less of a chance of an impact to another vehicle.
Thank you, Glenn, for that. Well, folks, we are right at our time limit today. I know there's a few more questions. So what we'll do is we will scroll through these and we'll answer them directly with you. We want to be respectful of everybody's time, and thank you for joining us today. I will give a quick reminder. We will send out the recording of this presentation along with a couple of assets for you, like the federal funding guidebook. I do want to give my shameless marketing plug. You can follow us at GTT Solutions on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. You can also subscribe to be a part of our email list and join us at upcoming shows. We're super active on LinkedIn, so follow us there. Thank you for tuning in today. I want to thank all of my panelists. Excellent job, guys. I learned a lot today, and I think a lot of our attendees did as well. So thank you so much and have a wonderful week, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.